Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at a 2024 election prediction between Mike Pence, the current vice president for Donald Trump, and Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York, who has risen to prominence during the entire pandemic through his actions taken as governor of New York. Whether they were positive or not, you can debate, but he has certainly gained an amount of national attention that he did not have previously. So getting into this, we're going to start out with the scenario in which Donald Trump actually wins the 2020 election. And so this is after 8 years of Donald Trump, and Mike Pence is nominated as the successor to him as the vice president, of course. So starting out, let's label all of the safe Democratic states. We've got Washington, Oregon, California, and Hawaii, as well as New Mexico and Illinois, New York, his home state, of course, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. As for the states I can comfortably label as safe for the Republicans in 2024, Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia, as well as his home state of Indiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Alaska, the two at-large electoral votes in Nebraska, as well as the 1st and 3rd congressional district. The 2nd congressional district is definitely much more of a swing kind of district than the rest of Nebraska, that is for sure. Now getting into the battleground states. The first thing that you probably have noticed is that I have not labeled the state of Montana as safe for the Republicans in 2024. That is simply out of precaution, because one thing to note is that Montana is moving more in the direction of the left, given that they have already one Democratic senator, and there is a good chance that there could be 2 Democratic senators in the state of Montana at the end of 2020 if Steve Bullock is able to unseat Steve Daines. There's also a chance that they could have a Democratic governor if current Lieutenant Governor Mike Cooney is able to win that seat, replacing former Democratic Governor Steve Bullock. We could see a Democratic governor and 2 Democratic senators in the state of Montana, which could drastically change the narrative in the state. However, that does not mean that it is going to necessarily be competitive. It just means that it's not necessarily safe, and thus I have labeled it as likely for the Republicans. As for the states that I would label as likely for the Democrats, there are 3. I would comfortably label Colorado as likely for the Democrats, as well as Virginia. These are 2 states that are moving more and more left over the past decade, and no Republican has really won a statewide election there in a while. I do expect John Hickenlooper to defeat Cory Gardner in the 2020 election in Colorado for the Senate there. It definitely will be much more of a likely state, along with Virginia. Another state that I do believe would be in the likely column for the Democrats in 2024 after 8 years of Donald Trump as president would be the state of Michigan and in the state of New Hampshire. In the state of Michigan, obviously this is a state that went to Barack Obama by 9 points in 2012. Now obviously it flipped in 2016 to Donald Trump by a little under 1 point against Hillary Clinton. It is a state that typically elects Democrats, and the Democrats have a significant voter registration edge, which means in a high voter turnout election in 2024, where the Democrats will almost be sure to have a wave across the country after 8 years of a Republican president in office. So that is another thing I want to preface in this video, is that the chances of a Democratic and huge wave and huge turnout across the country after 8 years of a Republican president, especially one as polarizing as Donald Trump, I do believe that there will be a significant wave across the country in favor of the Democrats. Now, New Hampshire is one state that was extremely close in the 2016 election, but I think its proximity to New York in the Northeast, there would be a lot of support for Andrew Cuomo in the state. and I do believe that it could comfortably go to the Democrats in 2024. Another state that I see going to the Democrats in a likely scenario is the state of Maine. And its first district will be safe, but its 2 at-large electoral votes will be likely for the Democrats, given that Barack Obama won in the state of Maine by over 13 points in both 2008 and 2012, which is something really to be noticed. It is a state that went to the Democrats by a large margin in 2008 and 2012, as opposed to 2016, where Hillary Clinton was only able to win by 3 points. Now, saying that, let's move on to the states that I would label as likely for either party. Now, starting out with the Republicans, I do believe that Iowa and Ohio will remain likely for the Republicans, especially with a candidate like Mike Pence in the Midwest, or at least in the lower Midwest. I do believe he will have some support there. Another thing I do want to mention is that I think Mike Pence would be one of the worst possible candidates the Republicans could possibly nominate for the 2024 election, simply based on the fact that after 8 years of Donald Trump and the undoubted, no matter if you're on the left or the right, Donald Trump has a certain charisma about him. He's a populist. He ran a populist campaign. He ran a campaign on his personality, and it's something that resonated with a lot of voters. Mike Pence is the complete opposite. Now, like him, his policies or not, he is not the type of candidate that will necessarily bring out a high voter turnout among Republicans across the country. So that is something to note as well. So these 2 states I do believe would be in the lean column for the Republicans at least. As for the South Carolina, I also think South Carolina could be labeled as a lean for the Republicans in 2024. It's a high African American turnout in the state of South Carolina, paired with obviously a state that is moving further and further left, maybe not as drastically as other states across the country, but I do believe by 2024 you could certainly see, especially with this matchup between Andrew Cuomo and Mike Pence, that it becomes a bit of a lean in favor of the Republicans. As for the lean states in favor of Andrew Cuomo, Nevada I would classify as a lean state for, actually, I'd almost say that Nevada could be labeled as a likely state in 2024, especially after 8 years of a Republican president. I do believe that could be moved into the likely column, while Arizona would stay in the lean column in favor of Andrew Cuomo and the Democrats. Same goes for the state of Minnesota. I do believe Minnesota would be in the lean column, as well as Pennsylvania. So those are the 3 states rather that would be in the lean column for Andrew Cuomo. And as you can already see, he's at 279 electoral votes, with a lot of states left to be classified. Moving on now to the tilt states for either candidate. For the Republicans, I do believe that Florida would maintain a tilt status for the Republicans, although, I'm actually going to leave it as a toss-up for now and leave it until the end of the video, because I actually do believe it would be the closest race in this entire election. As for Maine's first congressional district, I actually think it could shift into a tilt column for the Democrats, especially in the northeast. Andrew Cuomo has a lot of popularity in these states. He's well received there. A lot of voter recognition of his name, of his accomplishments as the governor of New York, transcends a lot of states there. Now, as for the states across the country that I could label as tilt for the Democrats, I do believe I could label North Carolina as a tilt for the Democrats in this type of election after 8 years of Donald Trump in office. I also think I could label Wisconsin as tilt for the Democrats, as well as the state of Texas and as well as the state of Georgia. Now, looking at this, you might think that is absolutely insane. This could never happen. The state of Texas and Georgia, and even maybe North Carolina, going tilt for the Democrats. I'd like, again, to state that I do believe Mike Pence would be the absolute worst candidate, or one of the worst candidates the Republicans could nominate in 2024 after 8 years of Donald Trump. This will be a country that will be sick and tired of the current administration. That is usually what happens after 8 years of a certain president. You see a country that is desperately looking to move to the other side of the political spectrum, and I do believe that will happen in 2024, not to mention the entire country moving further and further left on a wide variety of issues. I do believe that the Republican Party is going to have a lot of internal debate going on by 2024 because of these states in the Sun Belt that are moving further and further left. These are the states of Arizona, New Mexico, which you've already seen, Texas, in Georgia, Florida, maybe, South Carolina, and North Carolina. These are all states that are moving further and further left, and eventually, by 2024, in a high turnout election for the Democrats, in a wave election for the Democrats, could very, very easily flip for the Republicans. Now, Florida would be... I honestly think Florida will be a turnout or a toss-up state in any election, but just because I do believe that Mike Pence could carry enough support in a state like Florida with such a high older voting population, I do believe I'm going to label it as just tilt for the Republicans as things stand right now. So as you can look at the electoral map right now, the Democrats and Andrew Cuomo hold 359 electoral votes to Mike Pence's 178. Now, this is basically as close to an electoral landslide as we could possibly see in modern day politics. But I do believe that this is the most likely scenario for a 2024 election after Donald Trump wins in 2020. Oh, I almost forgot about the Nebraska 2nd Congressional District, which is tough to call, but I'm actually going to give it a tilt Democrat just because we've already seen a 5-point swing from 2012 to 2016 in that congressional district. It was extremely close in 2016 in an election where Hillary Clinton really struggled. So obviously in this election where there would be a national popular vote and electoral landslide, I do believe it could tilt in favor of the Democrats. So Andrew Cuomo actually holds 360 electoral votes to Mike Pence's 178. Now, saying this, what would change if Joe Biden were the winner in 2020 and he decided that he would not be running for re-election based on a number of reasons? Maybe he is too, because of his age, maybe national unpopularity with his policies, for any number of reasons. Say that Joe Biden were not to decide to run in 2024 after winning the 2020 election. How would that change things? Now, first of all, I would immediately say that I don't think Texas and Georgia would necessarily go to the Democrats in that type of scenario. So you already see 232 to 306, already a major swing. Now, I do believe that Nevada could probably move towards more of a lean margin, and Arizona could move towards maybe more of a tilt margin, as well as the state of Michigan, which may be more of a lean, Pennsylvania more of a tilt, maybe in the 2nd Congressional District in Maine, maybe that goes back to the tilt for the Republicans, as well as the 2nd Congressional District in Nebraska. Now, you already see 304 to 234, big changes across the country. Maybe you see North Carolina move towards a tilt Republican, although that's a little bit more of a stretch, I do believe. As for Montana, could possibly be more of a safe Republican. Maybe South Carolina remains more of a likely. There are a lot of scenarios in which this race becomes a whole lot closer if Joe Biden were the electoral victor or were the winner. There are a lot of scenarios in which this election becomes a whole lot closer in 2024 if Joe Biden were the winner in 2020 and chose not to run in 2024. Maybe you even see a state like Wisconsin go tilt Republican with Mike Pence as the nominee in 2024. A lot of things could change based on what happens in the 2020 election for the foreseeable political future of this country. So I hope you all enjoyed today's video. Please make sure to like and subscribe. Give me some video suggestions in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think of this type of scenario, these two different types of predictions and scenarios. Thank you all so much for watching. Tune in next time.